Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's Ask the Pet Food Pro. This series of expert chats is brought to you by Pet Food Forum and the editors of Pet Food Industry, with decades of providing the market with pet food expertise. You can find our reporting and analysis at petfoodindustry.com. Ask the Pet Food Pro offers a great opportunity to connect with pet food industry experts and ask the questions that are most on your mind. Today's discussion is all about the regulatory risks posed by functional pet treats versus health supplements. It's sponsored by Balchem, and thank you to them. Our expert today is Bill Bookout, President, Board Chairman, and founder of the National Animal Supplement Council. Welcome, Bill, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Tim. I really appreciate it. And it's great to be here. Glad to see so many people sign up. And thanks to you and the Watt team for putting this together, as well as Balchem for the sponsorship.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I'm Tim Wall, reporter for Pet Food Industry. I'm going to be your host today, covering for Debbie Phillips Thompson. So before we start the discussion, I have a few announcements. First off, to all of you out in the audience there, you've all been muted to ensure that everyone can hear and focus on the discussion. So please submit your questions or comments in the chat box. We had more than 50 questions submitted beforehand, and we really appreciate those, and we will try to get through as many of them as we can, along with the ones that are posted today in the chat. Finally, this chat is being recorded, and you can access the recording starting in about a week at petfoodforumevents.com, and then click on the Ask the Pro tab at the top. All right, so with that, let's dive into today's topic. Functional treats versus health supplements. Let's get at the very fundamental question here. Let's address that fundamental question, and it's frankly something I've wondered about myself. So what are the differences between pet treats and functional benefits and health supplements, both from a formulation and a U.S. regulatory view?
Great question. It's often misunderstood. So, foundationally, one of the things that people still don't understand is that the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, which is the legislation that the United States Congress passed in 1994, does not apply to animals. That legislation amended the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to create a category specifically for human dietary supplements as a subset of human food. FDA Center for Veterinary Medicine, which is the side of the House that regulates animal food and animal drugs, published an opinion in the Federal Register in 1996 that says, in the opinion of the agency, they did not believe that the United States Congress had intended for DSHEA to apply to animals. So on the animal side, you got two choices. You've got animal food or nutritional products, and you've got animal drugs. Period. That's it. Now people say we're not selling drugs, and I get it. Under the law, this is what the law says. And another big difference between human and animal products is we're potentially regulated at two levels: at the federal level by FDA and Center for Veterinary Medicine, at the state level also, depending on how the specific statutes in the state are written. But here's what the law says. So the law says under 201G1B, articles intended, emphasis added, for the use in diagnose, cure, mitigate, prevent disease in man or other animals. That's approved drug territory. So you have to be an approved drug, go through the new animal drug approval process to make claims involving disease, either overt or implied claims. All right. So health supplements and differentiating health supplements from either nutritional supplements or treats. We'll take a deeper dive into treats in a little bit. But 201G1C says articles other than food. You can read that as other than nutrition, intended, emphasis added, to affect the structure or any function of the body or man or other animals. So the point here is it's the claims or benefit statements that determine, it's not the only reason, but it's the first question. It's the claims or benefit statements that determine how a product is regulated. If you have a food, treats are food by defined term. That's under 201F of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, and state statutes mirror federal statutes. And this says, articles intended as food or drink for man or other animals, or articles used as components of any such articles. So case law that FDA relies on for claims for food are those that define taste, aroma, nutritional value, or technical effect. So if we look at G1C and we compare that to 201F, structure function claims non-nutritionally could be a health supplement or claims for providing taste, aroma, nutritional value, or technical effect. And when we get into talking about functional treats, it's usually the ingredients that bring the function to the treat. So you got to be careful of that. This is AAFCO, and incidentally, this is a PDF file that the hosts will make available by email, so you don't have to take screenshots or worry about taking a bunch of notes. These slides will be made available after the presentation. But AAFCO really says the same thing as federal law says. So that's just a summary. So AAFCO, I'm sure everyone knows, the Association of American Feed Control Officials. And I just wanted to put that up there to show consistency, that AAFCO recommendations, state statutes, and federal statutes are all consistent. Sorry, Tim, can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So considering within those regulations and the definitions of what's a supplement and all that, what could be considered the most slippery threshold for deciding whether a product would be considered a functional treat or a supplement?
Yeah, so very good question. So if you call a product, I said the first question is, what's the intended uses established by the labeling claims or benefit statements? If we go to 1 degree further, it's really the ingredients as well, and they have to support the intended use that you choose in the regulatory pathway. So when you market a product, the first question is, what's the intended use as established by the labeling claims? However, you also want to consider the ingredients and do they support the intended use. If you use an ingredient that is approved for use in an animal food product, it has to be utilized for the approved purpose. Terms can also be important. So if you call a product by a food term, biscuit, treat, snack, cookie, kibble, gravy, peanut butter, those are all food terms, and you will be regulated as a food no matter what. So here's an important takeaway. You can be a health supplement, non-nutritional structure, function, health benefit, or you can be a food, but you've got to be compliant with either pathway that you choose, and you can be one or the other, but you can't be both. So if you use ingredients, I have an example here of, a mistake that people, Tim, if you could back up just one slide, back up one right there. So comparing, remember, on the supplement side, you have 2 types of supplements. You have a health supplement for a non-nutritional health benefit, or you have a nutritional supplement for a nutritional benefit, vitamin, mineral, essential fatty acid. Again, as I said, you can be one or the other, but you can't be both. So if you want a senior dog vitamin and mineral with ingredients that would be not approved for use in animal food, like turmeric for discomfort, might be great for discomfort, but that's not the approved use, right? Or for supplements, if you add it to food or add it to water, as we saw under the law, if the animal consumes it free will, that makes it a food additive. So for treats, if you use that term, treats are regulated as food. So, and you can advance now if you want, Tim, on the slides. And so claims for ingredients should be acceptable and the ingredient utilized for the approved purpose. So I have turmeric as an example just because to illustrate a point. So turmeric is approved if I go to the AAFCO official publication and I search for turmeric. This is the results that I get. So if I look at 582.10, 582.20, which is on the next slide, and I click on those references in the Code of Federal Regulations, turmeric is approved as spice, flavoring, or other natural seasoning under 582.10 and approved in 582.20 as an essential oil, right? But if you go on the internet and you search for other uses of turmeric or look for human dietary supplements or even health supplements for animals and you find turmeric, if you advance one more slide, if you find turmeric, you may find turmeric as beneficial for less inflammation. I just went on, did a Google search. So if you think, great, turmeric's an approved ingredient, and I'm going to use that in a functional treat, you got to consider the approved use or purpose. Why is it in there, right? So you say, great, let's make a joint treat, beneficial joint treat that would be beneficial even if you have a structure function claim, discomfort in older dogs. There would be a regulatory risk with that because discomfort is not taste, aroma, nutritional value, or technical effect. And those are the limitations in terms of claims or benefit statements that you can make. So this is an example of an ingredient that you could use that's an approved ingredient that you could use in a functional treat for an unapproved purpose, which may cause regulatory risk, which means potential disruption to your business. And you don't want to have that. You could get a registration denied at a state, or you could get a stop sale notice. You could have a problem clearing U.S. Customs because the product may be considered a new unapproved animal drug, again, depending on the claim. So, and you could have a possible legal challenge for substantiation of claims. So I hope that gives a little clarity on the difference in, using an approved ingredient for an unapproved purpose. So don't make that mistake on a functional treat. Treats are food, and you're going to have to follow those.
Gotcha. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a very good example of exactly the kind of slippery slope that we're talking about when.
Yeah.
And so now that we've got a better idea of exactly what we are talking about, let's consider the value, the size of this market. Could you share any data or insights you have about the size of the U.S. functional treat and health supplement market?
Yeah, I can comment on the health supplement market or the supplement market in general. And so let's again define terms. And there are a number of organizations out there that have market data for both treats, functional treats, as well as supplements. So let's define the terms. Nutritional supplements and health supplements would be dosage form products similar to human dietary supplements marketed for non-human food chain animals, dogs, cats, and horses. So the market, back when we started NASC in 2001, the market was about $800 million in consumer spending level. And that's increased over time to about $2.6, $2.7 billion for dogs and cats for health supplements and nutritional supplements. Again, those would be products that are similar to human dietary supplements. So about 2.6, 2.7 billion. Now, COVID with everybody, it changed everybody's lives, right? We don't go into offices. A lot of people are working remotely. A lot of people still continue to work remotely. That caused a pretty significant increase in the supplement market or the demand for the supplement market. We thought it was a temporary increase, temporary buying, but I think the market actually it caused the market to expand at that point. So growth in the area, 2.6, 2.7 billion, I think, depending on what stats or people you talk to, I think 1 to 3% is probably pretty safe. I think the current market people would think is pretty slow growing, maybe even flat on the dog and cat side, might be a little down on the horse side. For functional treats, since NASC doesn't handle treats, but I want to be careful because if you're looking for market data, again, there's a number of agencies out there, LEK, Marketplace, Package Facts, all have data on supplements and treats. But you want to be careful that they're defined properly. So I've seen, treats are more than supplements, but be sure you don't get blended numbers because it's kind of hard to ferret out because most of the companies are private. So I hope that gives you some clarity on the supplement side. On the treat side, I hope that gives you a couple of good sources. But again, be careful of the numbers, that you don't have blended numbers and you're making an accurate, assessment of the potential market potential and economic success.
And it sounds like even with the economics, it's important to define exactly where one ends and the other begins.
That's right. That's right. And that line, people tend to blur that line, especially in some of the market research companies. Now, we work with a lot of those companies at NASC. So I think those delineations are becoming more and more clear, but they had been pretty blurry in the past and caused some confusion in market sizes and growth and things like that.
Let's see. Now, speaking of market growth and sizes, where do you see this pet supplement market going in the next few years? Do you see any trends or
Yeah.
direction?
Yeah. So typically on the companion animal side, dogs and cats, I think a universal truth is for the most part. And this is 98% true. The animal industry is going to follow the trends in the human industry. It's a fast follow industry. So I think whatever you typically see that's popular on the human side is also gonna gain popularity on the animal side. So from an overall trend, all the data that I've seen suggests that the market for supplements is a pretty resilient market. People will cut back on things for themselves before they'll cut out things for their companion animals. Now you may see more impact on the food side with premium and super premium diets. People will step it down a notch, but there's some recent data out there by Marketplace with Nicole Hill and John Copeland that suggest that they have some data that people will cut for themselves before they'll cut for their animals, which is a great thing for those of us in the animal business. So I think the market is pretty recession proof. I think it's flat currently, maybe slow growth, but I don't see it going backwards, Tim.
So we've got this nice, recession-proof industry, and
Yeah.
kind of going slowly. But within that market, pet owners they may be wanting to buy more of the health-focused products, whether supplements or treats.
Yeah.
But of course, they don't want to buy snake oil. They don't want to have smoke,
Right.
and they certainly don't want fake products.
Yeah.
So how are supplement brand owners and the producers required to make sure that their products are truly going to work? That they're ensured.
Well, that's a really good question. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Everybody wants research, and it's a requirement that the claims that a company makes be truthful, not false and misleading to the consumer, and they can substantiate those claims or benefits. So, but it's a double-edged sword. It's a low barriers to entry marketplace. What do I mean by that? That means if someone sees a product out there and, low barriers to entry, Bill and Tim's enterprising guys, we could start a company. That product's selling great. We can start a company, sell it on the internet, and they were going to, make some money, right? So if a company invests in research, there's limitations in intellectual property protections. So that limits the ability of a company to recoup the investment that it takes to substantiate the claims, substantiate the research. And also, let's say you have a product that shows it's beneficial for dogs with osteoarthritis. Those are claims you can't make, right, under the law, as we reviewed earlier. So there are legal limitations to research. But I think the most important question is quality, right? And I would operate by trust. We always operate by trust but verify, right? So there are two red flags that I always suggest that people, I think you can take to the bank. Companies that make claims that sound too good to be true probably are, right? And cheap products are generally cheap for a reason. Quality costs money. What do we want to have happen? Whether we're a business supplying, treats or supplements, or a retailer, or most importantly, a pet owner, we're trying to help our animals, right? You want to achieve a result. And so I think that result is optimized by considering quality first. You want a quality product beginning with quality ingredients produced by quality, repeatable processes. So you've got the same exact product next week, next month, next year. So if the animal is going to respond, and you want to maximize the probability the animal will respond, why? Because you want to help the animal first. But you also want to facilitate a repeat sale, right? You want that customer, that pet owner, to come back, buy the product again because they're happy with it. Maybe it's an essential fatty acid product and they, have a little itching and scratching or, shedding that they might want to deal with. And so essential fatty acids can be beneficial for that. So, quality first, I think that's always, so people can look for, quality audits, but people shouldn't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to the company. Ask them about the company. How long have they been around? You're making a decision for your extended family member. So, I think quality is always first. Trust but verify, right?
Right. It's pretty true in a lot of areas of life. So for these companies, when they are wanting to provide these quality products and bring these out to the market for folks, maybe they're looking for something that's not already out there, or they want to find some
Yeah.
new or something. What would you recommend as some good sources besides the AFCO manual for finding some exception or some acceptable nutritional ingredients that can work for your supplements?
Well, I think the AFCO manual is the easiest.
Mhm.
The AFCO official publication lists the ingredients that are approved for use in animal food. Again, as we discussed previously, you want to be careful that you're utilizing those ingredients for the approved purposes. But I'll give you another example and some terms that have kind of worked their way into, acceptability. So, antioxidants. Antioxidants in the pet food world are typically thought of or defined as antioxidation agents, anti-rancidity agents. But if we want to have antioxidants that are beneficial for, neutralizing free radicals that are unstable oxygen molecules associated with the aging process, you can't go that far in terms of statements or claims. But, vitamin E is a good antioxidant. Vitamin C is a good antioxidant. It's also, good source of vitamin E, a nutritional source. So if you limit claims to antioxidants and leave it at that, then I don't think you're going to get any regulatory issues with a functional treat. So a treat with antioxidants. Now, if you elaborate on that and talk about free radicals, then I think you would run the risk of potentially, getting, crossways with a state regulator, denied of registration or possibly even a stop sale notice, which you don't want to have happen, right? Because that can cause significant disruption to your business, especially if you're dealing with a major retailer where they have a bunch of distribution centers and they can't segment inventory. So, be careful of claims. But I think AFCO is the best source for approved ingredients, and I think it will continue to be even with the MOU going away with FDA.
Yeah, I mean, we'll delve into that in a second. Just let me take 1 second here and give an apology to Pet Food Compliance. I missed that we have two sponsors for this webinar. Special thanks to Pet Food Compliance for also being one of our sponsors. Um, Back to it. Okay, so we were talking about some of these, vitamin C, other supplements and ingredients that can be very helpful to pets. But the thing is, with dogs and even more so with cats, the phrase "taking your medicine," that doesn't work.
Yeah,
So if they don't like it, they won't eat it. So
that's right.
how do you feel about the palatability of supplements as an issue?
Yeah, so I hate to say what I'm about to say. All right. Palatability is probably number one because people just will not continually fight with an animal to get them to consume a product, right? I mean, people know that if you have an antibiotic and you try to, hide in peanut butter or something else or whatever to get them to consume it. So palatability, I hate to say this, but palatability is sometimes more important than does the product work or not? Are you going to achieve the benefit that you hope to achieve? So I think palatability is extremely important. On the, you know, dog side, I think chewables, at least on the supplement side, chewables are the standard delivery form,
Mhm.
right? Because they want it to be as palatable as a treat, right? Even though you can't call it a treat if it's a functional product, for non-nutritional benefit. But I think palatability is very important because if the animal won't consume it, then it's hard. Cats are even worse, and that's why the market is segmented. Probably, 75% dogs and 25% cats. Some people may say 80-20. Okay. Um, but, I think gels, where you can, mash it in their paw, put it on their fur, they'll lick it off, like some of the products out there. They're also unit dose stuff, stick packs and things. Um, there are products out there that are powders that you mix with food. Now, remember, if you mix with food and the animal consumes it free will, that's going to be regulated as a food. So be mindful of that, as opposed to an antibiotic where given on a full stomach, right? You see that all the time. If anybody's ever had an antibiotic, take with food so you don't have an upset stomach. So, palatability, long-winded answer to a short question, Tim, which is how important is palatability? Very.
Very gotcha. So you mentioned there briefly about the predominance of dogs within the supplement space. Is that the main reason? The fact that it's harder with cats, or are there some other reasons why there's fewer supplements for cats?
Well, cats are metabolically different than dogs. Cats are not just little dogs. So I think that's another good question is, who formulated the product? Do you have people in the company with expertise, in the target species that the product is intended for, whatever that product, whether it's a health supplement, a nutritional supplement, or a treat with. So cats are not just little dogs. However, cats are a smaller animal. They consume less. I always used to be a dog guy. Now we have two cats because I got adopted by a feral cat, and so now we have two cats and we love them to death. But cats, cats are always they're always second thought because they're tougher and they're not as economically beneficial, probably. So,
Gotcha. So just go back a little bit to what we were talking about, different ingredients and finding different ingredients. What about essential oils? Do essential oils play a role within the supplement market and the pet treat market? And what do
yeah,
consumers?
absolutely. Yep, big category.
Mhm.
So essential fatty acids, essential oils. They're certainly essential nutrients. They can be very, very beneficial for, skin, coat. That's another good example because if we have, essential oils, omega-3, 6, 9, very beneficial, essential nutrients. But if you have omega-3s, that's another example where omega-3s, if you have a targeted benefit for omega-3s, that could be discomfort. That's a non-nutritional benefit. A lot of research out there that says omega-3s, DHA, EPA, can be beneficial for discomfort, itching, scratching, hot spots, which you don't want to say, right? So I think, yes, treats with essential oils can be very beneficial as a functional treat. And I also think if you're careful of your claims and your sources are approved, that could be a really a good market, and it's a big market, but you want to be careful that the sources are approved. Like I had a product that somebody sent me the other day, asked me to comment on, it had borage oil in it. Borage oil might be a great source of essential fatty acids, essential oils, might be good on the human side, but it's not approved on the animal side. So be careful that your sources are approved, salmon, fish, flax, things like that. And again, AAFCO official publication, as well as this, which also in the online ingredients database, it'll give you references of both the AAFCO official publication as well as references in the codes in the Federal Register. So that's a real easy place to go to find both sources and references.
Right there.
And I'm not trying to plug AAFCO necessarily, but I always use the online official publication because it's keyword searchable. If you want to drill down a specific ingredients, it's keyword searchable and it's pretty easy to navigate.
It's a lot easier going online. So, well, speaking of AAFCO, actually, so just recently, beginning of this month, after 17 years, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration officials have opted not to renew their memorandum of understanding with AAFCO. How will that affect the product development, labeling, marketing, all that of nutritional supplements?
Yeah, another very good question. So, anything that's in progress through the Ingredient Definitions Committee will continue to go through that process, and FDA will continue, and this is publicly stated. FDA will continue to recognize all the ingredients that have gone through the IDC process, the ingredient definitions process. However, the approval for new ingredients with the MOU not being renewed will shift to FDA as the primary focus of those ingredients. Now, AAFCO is also looking at establishing another pathway that would be a fee-for-service pathway, and that's in discussion now about what that might look like. But it would be conducted in conjunction with one or more universities out there. It's not finished yet, but the ingredient approval process for innovative ingredients will shift to FDA. So I don't think it'll change all that much. I mean, really, at the end of the day, all roads begin and end with FDA anyway. So I don't see that as, changing a whole lot. But again, you're going to have to substantiate the ingredient for the nutritional purpose as established in the previous statutes that we put up on the presentation, rather than a non-nutritional health benefit. So I would encourage everybody, if they have questions on new and innovative ingredients, and the pet industry is certainly driven by innovation, don't hesitate to reach out to FDA and have an initial conversation. We've had a very constructive and productive relationship with the agency for over 20 years. And so I would encourage everyone to not be afraid of the regulators. Don't be afraid to engage a regulator, because they don't want to stop innovation. They'll help you. And I think by reaching out early and having a conversation early might help you expedite the process, continue, not make a mistake, which might cost you time and money.
Right. Kind of a measure twice, cut once kind of thing.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And the agency is very good, and very helpful. So again, some people are afraid to speak to a regulator, and in some cases, you got to measure what. I'd say you never want to ask a regulator question you might not want to hear the answer to. But sometimes it's better to hear the answer up front than not than make a mistake. And again, that costs you time and money down the road, potentially.
So speaking of one particular, claim that might trip people up, isn't a veterinary approved supplement
Yeah.
needed to market a supplement as veterinary approved or recommended?
Yeah, that's another good question. And actually, I have a slide in there that you can share with everybody. It's on risk. It's towards the end. It's on legal risk. I think there are three avenues of risk that are worth discussing in this context, because claims should be substantiated. Whatever claim they are. So you really have three axes of regulatory, or three axes of risk. You've got regulatory risk, that if you have a claim that is diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure, you can get a warning letter, and you don't want that to happen. If you've got functional ingredients in an animal treat, then you might not clear U.S. Customs, or even a health supplement. You don't want to have a product that would be considered a new unapproved animal drug, so you could get hung up in customs. And if that happens, then there's very little way out, right? Or you could have state actions where deny of registration, or you could have an adulterated or misbranded product, adulterated meaning ingredients that are not approved for use in food, or misbranded claims that you shouldn't make. But there's really a couple other axes of risk that should be considered. Federal Trade Commission looks at, unsubstantiated claims or untruthful claims that are false and misleading to the consumer. They usually focus on larger companies because they make a statement, and then everybody sees that, and you get a behavioral change within industries. But more appropriately, or more often recently, I think, are plaintiff's attorneys, where any claim that you make can be challenged. And you have to substantiate that claim no matter what it is. And, that usually results in, significant legal expense, or possibly, settlement charges. So number three, I would encourage people to be mindful of, and that's really true for all claims that you make, whether it's, a benefit claim or human grade claim, organic. Those are other claims. You asked earlier about trends on the animal side, that, what's happening that might, organic products, natural products, all natural, right? You have to be 100% natural. Human grade. If you want to say human grade, you got to be 100% human grade ingredients, right? So substantiation of claims, no matter what they are, you should be prepared to defend those. Now, if I bring that back to your original question, which was veterinarian approved or veterinarian recommended, we advise people to stay away from approved. And let me do a disclaimer statement. I'm not an attorney, so this is not legal advice. Companies that have questions like that should consult legal counsel, but be sure they're knowledgeable in the law for animal food, animal supplements. Some attorneys mistakenly are unaware that DSHEA doesn't apply to animals, so be sure you're talking to, good, solid legal counsel, knowledgeable in this area. I won't plug anybody here, but if you go to the AAFCO meetings, you'll know that there's good, solid representation with initials JP that are usually there. So, consult legal counsel, but I'd stay away from approved. Veterinarian recommended, I think, is certainly, but you still have to substantiate that. How many veterinarians is enough to be able to substantiate veterinarian recommended? Better be more than one. What's a statistically significant number of veterinarians that would allow you to substantiate that claim if challenged?
Gotcha. So speaking of some of those challenges that people can, or getting credibility, I suppose would be one way to say it. So are there some certifications that are required to manufacture supplements for pets in the U.S.? And could you explain some of those to us?
Well, you should be registered with FDA producing animal food if you're a foreign supplier. And I didn't put this in the presentation. I should have probably. People can write this down: Foreign Supplier Verification, FSVP. So if you're offshore, exporting products to the States, you want to be mindful of foreign supplier verification and compliance with 21 CFR Part 507, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act for animal food. And there are a number of organizations out there that are independent organizations that do audits that, verify that those processes are in place and that the SOPs are written down and also being followed and applied to the particular industry and the products that the company is providing. So again, there are a couple of references in there. Also, be mindful of, if you're offshore, foreign supplier verification, FSVP.
Right. So we've been speaking pretty much entirely about U.S. regulations and things like that. But we did have quite a few questions about international regulations and things like that. So if we first talk about maybe about like, what are some U.S. labels that are maybe not allowed for products imported by Asian countries?
Yeah.
The Philippines was pointed out by one guest.
Global harmonization is probably an idealistic goal, but it's nevertheless a goal that all of us would like to, aspire to. North America is pretty consistent at this point, both for products for a non-nutritional benefit as well as nutritional benefits. The best advice I can give you are you gotta check with the specific requirements in the country or market that you're interested in. So it's the old saying, act globally, think locally. Right. So I would encourage people to reach out to distribution partners, retailers that are local, because they will typically know what the requirements are in the particular country or geographic region that you might be interested in. I wish I could give you a good, solid, standard answer that says, here's the link, here's the references, do this, and it's good anywhere. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist. But if you look at the major market areas, North America is pretty consistent. The Far East has its own sets of challenges, and that, it changes not infrequently, unfortunately. Then you've got the EU, UK, and South America. So check with the local folks that you want to deal with and find out what's required. And there are also other organizations out there that help with international markets from a consulting standpoint and specialize in those things. We have some references on the NASC website in the preferred supplier program in the other category that people could go there and, check out if you wanted to. But I wish I could give you a good solid, these are the rules, go to this web link and it's good everywhere. Tim, I'm sorry I can't do that, but, maybe we'll get there one day.
Right. There's no globalized system of supplement regulation yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So within that global market for supplements in the US and worldwide, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a company just starting out in the supplement world?
Well, the first thing I'd say, and I get people that call that want to join NASC, we're a trade association, as people probably know, and I ask them, why do you want to get in the supplement business? I think the supplement industry can best be classified as a mature, rapidly commoditizing market. So, there was a lot of M&A activity, and, you get thinning in the middle ranks of companies, a lot of consolidations, larger companies are entering the marketplace, not only in the pet food space, but also human dietary supplement space. So I think the gap between the smaller companies, pick that number, 5 million and under, 10 million and under, whatever number you want to tag it on, and the larger players that have a bigger market basket and leverageability with other products, goods and services that they provide is becoming widened. And I think that'll continue. So the first question that I ask people is, what's your competitive differentiator? Why do you want to get in this business, right? Why is somebody going to buy your product as opposed to the other products that are out there? Many products. There aren't any really unique, unique areas in terms of, joints, essential fatty acids, probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics. We can talk more about that's an up and coming area. The biotic area, I think, is important. Calming products, things like that. But what's your competitive differentiator? What's going to differentiate you from everybody else out there that's going to create sustainable competitive advantage and allow you to be successful as a business, right? And if they have that, if they have those questions answered, then hey, by all means, then make a good quality product and proceed down, your business plan with those strategic objectives backed by the tactical actions, and wish you all the success in the world. Because at the end of the day, we all want to make a difference in the lives of animals, right? We want animals to live long, happy, healthy life to the maximum degree possible. Same as we want to do for ourselves. So anybody that we can help, Watt as well, anybody that we can help facilitate those objectives for the betterment of the lives of companion animals, that's what we're about. And I think that's what everybody in this industry is really about. That's why it's such a great industry to be in. You're on mute again, Tim. Sorry.
Yeah, we're all animal lovers in this industry.
Yeah, it's a great industry. People are just great people for the most part.
Speaking of the people in this industry, let's look at a couple of the questions that we've gotten. So one of them is, are there validation methods required for measuring the active ingredients in supplements? Does it have to be measured?
But you're required to meet label claim throughout the expiration date or best by date on the product. So you want to check with, standard AOAC, USP, standardized testing methodologies, depending on the ingredients that you utilize. And, it depends on what those published testing methods are. Now, there can be complexities on the other end of, when you get a finished product, you want, to have a good quality product at the end of the production cycle, you got to start with quality raw materials, which have to be verified both under the law as well as, business practices to make a quality product. We also want to have testing that verifies that whatever you represent on that label, nutritionally or otherwise, is also substantiated. So you got to be careful. And that also brings into consideration process, potential influences, right? In the pet food industry, you have thermal processes like kill steps or knocking out potential bad pathogens like salmonella that can affect the integrity of some of the ingredients in there that may be subject to thermal degradation. So usually on the health supplement side, the extrusion processes for smaller dosage form products like chewables, similar to one of the heartworm preventatives out there, standard delivery systems, which I'm sure everybody has seen. Those are non-thermal processes, but on the pet food side, and you're probably also familiar with that, with, potentially affecting things like probiotics, right? Heat and moisture, enemies of probiotics, so you can kill off live viable microorganisms or direct fed microbials. And, if they're not alive as far as probiotics, then you can't make label claims. So you want to check and be sure you're using an appropriate testing methodology for the particular claim that you want to substantiate: label claim, ingredient claim, content claim.
Gotcha.
And that's also a requirement under the law. Mm-hmm. You don't have to test yourself out of business necessarily, right? You can get so caught up in testing products that you can test yourself right out of business. Mm. You don't have to test yourself out of business, but it's important that you do have both raw material verification and finished product testing in place for some of the ingredients. And we recommend look at the most volatile ingredients or potentially volatile ingredients, start there, and then maybe once a quarter test something else, right? If your processes are under control and you start with the most volatile ingredient and you meet label claim on that one, then logic, reason, and rational thought processes say you should be able to make those assumptions extendable to other ingredients, provided that your processes are in control. You're batching things, blending things correctly, right? So some testing is required, but you don't have to test yourself out of business.
Right. So following up kind of from that of like testing the amounts that are in something, we have a question here about claims regarding the content of certain components in foods. For example, if someone were to claim that their supplement or treat was high in curcumin or turmeric, which is this, which is standard. So I guess are there claims regarding the content of those?
Well, that's a good that's a good example because I had that one on there, turmeric and curcumin. So that's approved as a spice, flavoring, or seasoning, right? And so on a food product, you're going to have an ingredient list that the are listed in descending order by predominance. So turmeric or curcumin are approved as spice, flavoring, seasonings. So if that ingredient appears too high in your ingredient list, even if you don't make a specific claim, contains X number of milligrams of turmeric in that product, right? A regulator could view that as you have way more in there than it would take to be a spice, flavoring, or seasoning. So therefore, you're including it for a non-nutritional benefit, right? So you got to be aware and careful of where does that ingredient fall in your ingredient list, even if you don't make a specific claim. Right? I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So let's see, another one about ingredients that we have here. Going back to essential oils. What about essential oils as in plant extract used for polyphenols, typical for health benefits?
Well, you got to be careful. Again, it's all about the claim. So if you have essential oils for health benefits, now you can have some claims. This is an essential oil example, or is not an essential oil example, but taurine is an essential nutrient to help prevent dilated cardiomyopathy in cats, right?
Right.
So you can make a claim for a nutrient that is a structure function claim or even a help prevent claim if it is scientifically substantiated, and meaning nutritionally scientifically substantiated, nutritionally linked, and true. So if you have essential oils for a health claim with polyphenols, right, antioxidant benefits, or you got to be careful of that. If you say antioxidants and stop there, probably okay. But if sometimes the more you say, the deeper you can dig the hole, right? And an attorney told me once, I guarantee you, if you have videos, you put something on a video, the longer you talk, the higher the probability you're going to hang yourself. Right. So you can have structure function claims on nutritional products. They have to be truthful, nutritionally linked, scientifically substantiated. You can even mention disease like dilated cardiomyopathy. You can't say help prevent, or you can say helps prevent but not treat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So be careful. If you have questions about claims, and you got to have everybody on the same page also, right? So I would suggest to people out there in companies that, especially if you're in regulatory, get your regulatory people and your marketing and sales people together, because we do a webinar that if you really understand the rules about what you can communicate to your customer, you'd be surprised what you can say. And then your sales and marketing departments won't look at your regulatory departments as the sales prevention department, right? So get everybody on the same page, right? The better everyone understands the rules, the better you can play the game, meaning the more effectively you can market your product and communicate your feature benefit competitively differentiated message and not wade into regulatory hot water.
Gotcha. So speaking of another ingredient that there might be a little confusion of, and people want to avoid getting into that regulatory hot water, what about salmon oil for pets? Is that a food, a supplement?
Well, salmon oil, I think, is probably, again, it's the intended use, not the ingredient, that establishes how the product is regulated. So it depends on how salmon oil is utilized. For first thing I'd tell people for salmon oil is you want to be sure you verify that it is salmon oil. If you say salmon oil, then you're on the hook for substantiating that that is salmon oil and not mixed species or plant-based, essential oil. So first thing I would tell you is verify that it is salmon oil. Don't take somebody's word for it. Verify it, right? Verify it yourself. There is a company out there in Norway that does species verification for essential oil, salmon oil being one. So then the question is, what's the benefit of salmon in there? If that's for healthy skin and coat, great. It's great for that. It's a good broad source of essential fatty acids, also DHA and EPA. So you want to keep your claims within those allowable for taste, aroma, nutritional value, technical effect, established claims for nutritional products. If you want to use salmon oil as a source of DHA and EPA for discomfort, that's a non-nutritional benefit. So again, the ingredient intended use is the first question, ingredients are the second question. So it's really it's understanding the entirety of the regulatory process that makes up this three-dimensional thing, a product, right? So they're interdependent, not independent questions necessarily.
I see. So if a manufacturer was to decide to produce only health supplements, would they be
Yep.
required to comply with 21 CFR 507 if it's not
Good
considered?
question. Yeah, really good question. So if you're only going to do a health supplement, 507 is for animal food. 21 CFR Part 111 are good manufacturing practice standards for human dietary supplements. At NASC, we have hybrid standards. So we have 21 CFR Part 111, 95% plus components of 21 CFR Part 507 for food safety and preventive controls. So if you only comply with 507, will you be okay? I think you'll cover about 85% of the bases. If you're compliant with 21 CFR 117, which is FSMA for human food, you'll be about 85% of the way there. If you combine either 507, 117 with components of, do gap analysis and do components of 111, you're going to hit any standards. Now, remember, the DSHEA doesn't apply to animals. So technically, those standards don't apply. So I'd probably start with 507, 117, fill it in with gap analysis on 111. That's what we've done.
Ah. And so then to go from supplements towards like pharmaceuticals and things like that, we did have a question about some of the
Yep.
quality controls for supplements versus pharmaceuticals and maybe some of the differences
Yep.
between them.
Yeah, so pharmaceutical CGMPs are 21 CFR Part 211, right? And usually the bar that's an unreasonable hurdle for the industry to clear are in terms of validations, right? Your processes have to be validated for 211. So, I wouldn't try to clear the bar on 211. If you already did that, then that's great. On the livestock side, medicated feed, you should certainly be mindful of 211. But on the pet side, if you're going to make a product like heartworm prevention or diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure, then you ought to go down the new animal drug approval pathway, get the IP protection, navigate that process, comply with 211, and get your animal drug approved.
Gotcha. So as we're coming up to our last 5 minutes here, we got time for maybe one or two more questions. I have one here that's just kind of a confirmation. Somebody's wanting to make sure, they want to confirm that when probiotic toppers are sold in little sachets to be put on top of pet food, is that considered, what is that considered from a regulatory standpoint?
Food. Food.
Okay.
Any product you add to food,
I
mix
know
with
it's
food,
food.
sprinkle on top of food, or add to water, and the animal consumes it free will, becomes a food additive,
Gotcha.
right? So it's regulated as food.
And we had one more question here that was looking at it from the manufacturing side, looking at regulation and certification, especially regarding human grade ingredients and human grade
Yep.
certified facilities. Is that something you
Yep.
see? Is the industry moving that direction?
Yes. Up and comer. So you want to be sure that you're complying with 117, which is Food Safety Modernization Act for human food, or you could comply with 21 CFR Part 111, human dietary supplements, CGMPs. But I would get independent verification. If you're challenged on that, then if you have an independent audit that you've been audited and passed and you adhere to those standards, I believe that would satisfy that you're manufacturing to human food standards.
Gotcha. And we could probably squeeze in one more question here. How about, do you see the FDA becoming more open to innovation in the biotics and microbiome claim space?
For sure. 100%. There's legislation that won't go through in 24, but it's certainly be on the docket in 25 with the Innovative Feed Act that will expand some of the allowable claims for animals and also human food. So keep your eye on that Innovative Feed Act. I think the FIA is supporting that legislation, and the answer is yes, and that's an up and coming area for biotics in general, pre, pro, post. So yeah, and I think that'll be positive. Also, emissions. There's a section in there that will allow increased claims for greenhouse gases and decreasing those kinds of things. So yeah, check that out. Innovative Feed Act.
Gotcha. And we've gotten a number of questions here asking for like resources where some of these things are listed out, like regulations and which supplements are approved and all that. Is these
Yeah.
Are there some good sources that you might recommend as we're closing out for where people can find more?
Well, on the AFCO website, they've redesigned that website. I think they got the business of pet food. There's a tab on the top with a bunch of different drop-down menus. Some of the stuff I've got there. You can certainly consult the NASC website. There's not a ton of information, but and I saw one question shoot by that: will the slides be available? I think you guys said that you would make those available, the PDF file. My contact information's on the last slide or one of the last slides. You're welcome to email me if you want. I mean, even if you're not an NASC member, I'll be happy to answer a question for you. It doesn't do the industry any good, for me to let you make a mistake. So if I can help, reach out and I'll either give you an answer if I can or see if I can direct you properly where you can find the answer. Yeah, and again, a lot of the presentations that you guys put on at Pet Food Forum and other things that you do, and that Watt's behind are really great educational opportunities. So, good on you for keeping that up and keeping that as a focus. Tim, Debbie, the whole Watt team.
Thank you. Thank you for the plug. And of course, a big thank you to leading today's discussion, Bill. I've learned a lot myself. This is certainly a topic that I have always been a little confused about, and this has cleared up a lot. So I'd really like to thank you for sharing your expertise. And I'd like to thank Pet Food Compliance, and apologize for not mentioning them the first time. And also thank Balchem for their support of this Ask the Pet Food Pro. So to continue learning on many other pet food industry topics, as Bill just mentioned, please ask for more Ask the Pet Food Pro chats coming throughout this year, along with our pet food industry webinars. We would greatly appreciate your feedback on today's chat. So please scan the QR code that you should now be able to see to access the survey, and we'll be emailing a survey link soon as well. And finally, there's the recording of the recording of this will be available in about a week, also on petfoodforumevents.com under the Ask the Pro tab. So I'd like to thank all of you out there for joining us today. Once again, I'm Tim Wall, reporter for Pet Food Industry, and I'd like to thank Bill once again, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Thank you.